Thank you, everyone, for joining today's webinar on measuring, monitoring, and improving employee engagement to drive profitability. My name is Pamela Briggs, and I am a Business Development Executive for Scantron Survey Services. And I would like to cover a few housekeeping items before we get started today. First, I would like to ask everyone to please make sure to mute your lines by pressing the mute button or star. We will attempt to answer as many or all of the questions we receive. However, if we are not able to address all of them, we will type those up, answer them, and email them out to you following the presentation, along with a copy of the slides we are showing today. Today's presentation is approximate engagement, sharing with you the evolution from satisfaction to engagement, also covering employee engagement best practices and how to take employee engagement from theory to practice using Scantron Survey Solutions, and also addressing any questions and answers that you may have during our Q&A session. Before we begin and cover the theory on employee engagement, I would like to cover a brief introduction on Scantron. Scantron is a highly capitalized growth organization. Shown here in this graphic with our sister companies, Harlan Clark and Harlan Financial Services. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of the Harlan Clark Holdings Corp. And owned by McAndrew and Forbes, which has been listed in Fortune's magazine for one of the 100 fastest growing companies for both 2009 and 2010. Some of the areas of expertise, Scantron has been around for nearly 40 years and providing data collection and survey applications, including customer satisfaction and loyalty surveys, such as market research, focus groups, as well as online proprietary customer panels. We also cover employee satisfaction surveys, such as conference and training evaluations, 360-degree feedback surveys, and part of our solutions include providing management debriefs and action planning, as well as coaching, strategic planning, as well as any other type of data collection applications where we're collecting mission-critical information for organizations. And with that, I would like to introduce Dr. Margaret Henry, and she is a senior research analyst here at Scantron, and she is going to cover some of the theory behind employee engagement. Margaret?
Thank you, Pamela, and I'd like to thank everyone again for joining us today. I know we all have busy schedules. I'd like to get started by talking about some of the research and theory that underlies the whole notion of employee engagement and how it was developed, sort of the evolution from satisfaction to engagement. And speaking of satisfaction, for decades, most organizations have been measuring employee satisfaction. However, the one issue that comes up with merely measuring employee satisfaction is that satisfaction is a unidimensional variable, which means it is cognitive. It's a very flat variable. And with regard to satisfaction, primarily we're looking at whether or not an employee's basic needs are being met. And if that is the fact, then typically we would say that employees were satisfied and they would report that they were satisfied. However, we've learned over the course of many years and lots of research that even some of the most satisfied employees still may leave. And one of the biggest issues or largest challenges among an organization, primarily an organization that very specifically chooses their talent and would like to retain them, is trying to avoid that attrition rate, because as I'll speak a little further regarding attrition within an organization is very expensive. So primarily, as I mentioned, we started with satisfaction, and understanding that satisfaction does not necessarily mean one of your valued employees is going to remain with the organization. We've come to realize that there are many other variables or components that are involved. And basically, those variables come together, or those attributes come together, and develop something that we currently call engagement. And within the past 5 years, measuring and surveying with regard to employee engagement has become really important to many organizations, especially within our given economy. And just to give you an overview, engagement takes into account also that cognitive perspective that satisfaction is based upon, but also there's an emotional component that leads to engagement. And basically, I have a number of bullet points on this slide. The emotional perspective of it is really an emotional attachment. It's when an employee develops an emotional attachment not only to the position, but also to the organization for which they work. And if an organization can foster such an attachment and can help facilitate engagement among their employee base, they are going to reap significant amounts of benefits, and I will talk about them more as we go on. But just by definition, I want to say out loud that engaged employees they're fully involved, they're enthusiastic, they're passionate and motivated. They tend to be the individuals within an organization that help drive the vision and help drive the success of that organization. And engaged employees typically go far beyond what is required just by definition, given their work position. They actually, again, they share within the organization the values and the goals of the organization, and they do more than their share to try to drive the growth of that organization. The amount of loyalty and the level of commitment that an organization gains from an engaged employee is very significant. The next thing I'd like to review is the three sort of levels or the three groups of engagement. And the first one is the actively disengaged employee. And I think we just skipped this slide here. Let me go back. And the actively disengaged employee, they're not just necessarily unhappy with their position. It goes far beyond that. As I mentioned, engaged employees sort of are the drivers of an organization. They are the foundation of the growth of an organization. If you happen to have an actively disengaged employee within a team or within your group, not only are they, as I said, independently unhappy or dissatisfied with their position, they tend to sort of place all of their effort and energy in trying to undermine the good work of the engaged employees. So disengaged employees can be very dangerous and, again, very costly to any organization. They typically don't successfully do their job well, and they can cause great damage to an organization. So that is one group or one type or one level of engagement that we have. Sort of the middle or neutral level are those employees who just, they're not engaged. They're there. They're not terribly dissatisfied, but they're not yet engaged. They're these individuals, and I'm sure if you think for yourself, you can identify a few of these people within your own organization, maybe within your own team. They're not necessarily focused on the big picture for the organization, the goals, the growth. Instead, they're concerned about their job and just doing their job. They don't necessarily have very strong relationships with other team members. They don't look to do anything more than what they're asked to do. And they sort of just get by day to day. And then we come to the area of the type of employee that every organization wants to have, and those are the truly engaged employees. And they are truly the builders of organizations. An engaged workforce is a primary enabler of a successful execution of any business strategy. They drive growth, they drive innovation, they drive progression within the organization. They want to know what they can do to help above and beyond their own position. They consistently perform at very high levels. Again, they're passionate about their position, they're passionate about the organization. If the organization does well, they feel that they do well. So this relationship of engagement between an employee and an employer is very important. Now, on the next slide, I just want to show a few main points with regard to the differences between engaged and disengaged employees. And these first bullets on either column are probably a good summary bullet. Engaged employees, they're staying with the organization. They stay with the corporation for what they are able to give. They feel like part of a team. They feel like they are contributing. However, disengaged employees stay with the corporation for what they get, and primarily that's a paycheck. They're not invested, they're not connected to the organization in any way. They cost the organization a lot of money, they take more sick days, they aren't advocates, and they're not necessarily creative, whereby the engaged employees, those are the drivers of revenue. Those are the employees who are going to remain. Again, they're committed. It's emotional attachment. It's not just a mere level of satisfaction. That can easily be upset. They don't take many sick days or advocates for their employer, and they feel like they have a lot to offer, and they're happy to offer it. And putting this just one more step into perspective, there are a number of sentences on the bottom of the slide. And basically, it's if turnover costs are easily able to reach 150% of an employee's annual salary. And this can cost significantly higher, obviously, if we're talking about managerial or sales positions. And I just want to take a moment to put this in perspective, because this can become a very large cost for any organization, to the point that it could possibly be crippling. Let's assume the average salary of an employee in a given organization is roughly $50,000 a year. So if you took that cost at a turnover 150% of their salary, again, we have a $50,000 salary, the cost of turnover per employee is $75,000. And that's costing the organization. And, you know, a normal attrition rate very well can reach 10% for any organization if they're not careful with, you know, attempting to maintain and doing everything they can to keep this dedicated workforce. So if we had a mid-sized company of, say, 1,000 employees, and they had a 10% annual rate of attrition or turnover, the annual cost for that organization is $7.5 million. So this is very, very important. And again, our employees are one of the greatest assets that an organization can have. Not only, regardless of whether they're customer-facing or not customer-facing, they represent the organization. They're the glue that holds the organization together, and they are sort of the wealth of knowledge that's going to help that organization grow. And this next slide here takes this information or this understanding of an engaged employee and looks at yet another level of benefits that any organization can incur from focusing on engaging their employees. This happens to be a longitudinal study that we are doing with an organization, and as you can see, we've been doing this since 2004. And basically, we've been tracking levels of engagement. We have an employee engagement that this organization does, and they simultaneously do a customer engagement survey. And there's lots of research, lots of articles out there that tell you that there's a very strong parallel. There's a direct correspondence or correlation with your level of engagement among your employees and also the level of engagement you can acquire among your customers. And again, this is something that we've done internally, and we've done it for 6 years now. And if you look, you can see the peaks and the valleys within these line charts. They're almost directly parallel. The top line is the level of percentage of engaged employees within this organization. And again, any organization is going to see peaks and dips because there are different things that happen within an organization that are a part of growth and a part of movement, mergers, or restructuring. But what's more important, if you look at that green line, that's the indicator of the percentage of engaged customers. And if you look, again, these lines have a very significant correlation. They correspond almost directly. So this is yet another extremely important reason, aside from the possible costs of maintaining an engaged employee and workforce. And in order to do that, one of the primary things is to speak with your employees, know what's going on, and truly understand what employee engagement is. So this slide sort of sums up employee engagement. As I said, we started with satisfaction, which is cognitive, it's logical, and then we add that emotional investment part, that emotional attachment that an engaged employee has to their position, to the people they work with, to the organization. And those two things combined lead to an engaged employee. And the benefits the number of benefits that an organization gains from having an engaged employee is a large level of loyalty, advocacy, commitment, drive, enthusiasm, support. And that, in turn, leads directly, that arrow is there intentionally, to growth, innovation, and increased revenue within an organization. There's two other areas I'd like to touch upon. We have been doing survey research and engagement research among employees and customers for a very long time. And these bullets that are on this slide are the principal areas that come up time and time and time and time again whenever we do employee engagement research or employee engagement studies. And it's regardless of the industry, it's regardless of the level or tenure within the industry, and it's regardless of the position. These things, again, are the most important areas to employees. And if you look at them, it speaks to relationships, advancement opportunities. Again, they are giving. They want to know that the organization is supportive of them advancing. And it has to do with perceptions, values, feedback, that recognition, the communication. Again, engagement is more of an emotional component than it is a cognitive. And we've been basing all of the work that we do on these areas. And again, they come up time and time again. And I'd like to share with you one last thing before I turn things over to Pamela. And this is a case study that, one other thing I wanted to mention, and I started to mention a little earlier, is that employee engagement is a two-way relationship between the employee and the employer. And by that I mean the employer does have the opportunity to impact and facilitate the level of engagement that every employee within that organization can develop. And the ways in which we recommend to do this, as I mentioned, we've been doing this a long time, is to first recognize the fact that you have disengagement in your organization. Or maybe you have those individuals who aren't necessarily actively disengaged, but just not truly engaged. And again, they could become very problematic for your organization. So we would recommend definitely planning and conducting an employee engagement survey. Typically, most organizations do this annually, unless there's something unusual occurring. If there's been a big reorganization, restructuring, or acquisitions or mergers, then sometimes they'll be done biannually. And it's important, once you collect all of this data, analyze and interpret the findings. And what's even more important than analyzing and interpreting the findings is acting upon the results. The worst thing any organization can do is ask for feedback from their employees and not act upon anything that they learn. And it's important to, again, actually put these things into action, create strategies, improve those areas, allow the employees to gain whatever it is that they need from their position in order to reach this level of engagement, because again, the organization is going to be your benefits. Take any action you need to re-engage any disengaged or not engaged employees. And then once you've done all that, we strongly suggest to repeat 1 through 5. It's important to keep your finger on the pulse of your employees. Now, here is the case study that I've done recently this past year. And again, if you'll notice on the left-hand side, I just have a column of satisfaction, because we can't really reach levels of engagement until we address problems with satisfaction. Again, engagement is that cognitive component and the emotional component. You have to be sure that the cognitive component is directly in place. So this was, I would say, a mid-sized corporation, and I conducted an employee engagement survey, and we collected all the data, and I did a pretty in-depth analysis of the data, and also the analysis also included what's called a key driver. And basically, it's a regression model, it's a predictive model, and it identified the issues that drive and have the most impact upon satisfaction. And again, I'm not even yet speaking about engagement, because this particular organization's issue is even larger than that, because it's at the level of satisfaction. And what I was able to find is that these 4 checks in this left-hand column, these 4 areas alone, just these 4 areas, were responsible for 71% of variance in satisfaction. So they drove 71% of the level of satisfaction among employees. So needless to say, the impact of just these 4 areas were huge. So from this, I was able to realize, again, the reason that they had come to do the survey was they were experiencing increased attrition rates and lower levels of engagement. And this was obvious to them just from production levels, performance levels, and motivation levels. And I found that the organization was developing, a lot of the employees were developing a pretty significant lack of trust. They felt that they were uninformed. They were feeling basically helpless and ineffective. And in speaking with the organization and reviewing the findings here, I was able to understand that the organization was going through a pretty significant reorg at the time, a restructuring. And they weren't communicating, I would say effectively, but truth be told, they weren't even really communicating, down the line with the employees what was going on, what the plans were, what the vision was, and what the future was. So employees who thought or suspected they had a stable work environment with a stable organization suddenly felt as if the carpet was being pulled out from under them. When the case was, the stability wasn't lost. The reorg was a very positive thing for this organization. However, it was never shared among the employees, among the workforce. So the recommendations moving forward and the actions that were put into plan was to increase the transparency, increase levels of communication. Different divisions, different departments were scheduling weekly meetings. Even if there was nothing specific to update, they were still getting together so that everyone could talk, everyone felt involved, everyone felt that their opinion counted. They allowed opportunities for employee input, both anonymous and face-to-face. They retained their focus on core values, which I found out was important to the employees and also was not being lost by the organization. And then employees wanted to improve recognition. And it's interesting because it wasn't necessarily recognition for their work. It was recognition for them being an important part of the team. So this was, again, one survey, one administration, and we were able to find out some pretty significant things that were going on within the organization, and they were able to certainly slow down the attrition rate once they were able to understand what was going on. So with that being said, I'd like to turn this over to Pamela, and she's going to talk a little bit more about our approach to employee engagement.
Thank you, Margaret. Yes, what I wanted to do is cover some of the solutions that Scantron offers for helping you with the process for measuring, monitoring, and improving employee engagement to get the benefits out of this type of program, as Margaret was talking about, with the improvement on loyalty and commitment, engagement, and so forth. Scantron offers complete survey solutions. We offer solutions for to help you with managing the entire process in-house in your own organization using your resources, or you can outsource the entire project to Scantron Survey Solutions, our outsourcing group, where we can help you with even some of the items on the front end or the information on the back end so that you can get the most valuable information that you need to help make change and changing behavior within your organization. The steps that, the critical steps that are involved for a survey to be successful include the design of the actual survey, creating a survey plan, if you will, deploying the survey and choosing the appropriate methodologies, collecting that information, looking at the data results and measurement from those surveys, and then taking the information that you receive from the survey and developing action plans around that. And whether you're looking to do the program in-house using your own resources, we offer pre-survey consulting as well as our software, scanners, and print services. And we also provide the post-survey consulting on the back end. If you're to outsource the project, we also do all of the data collection and survey distribution and reporting for you while still providing the upfront and back-end work as well. And all of our solutions, whether you are looking to find an in-house solution to automate the data collection or you're looking to outsource, this is a very collaborative partnership between our clients and Scantron. And we offer specific products and services to help you with managing this project, or we can do everything from beginning to end and provide a complete solution. One of the most important things in doing a survey project is, in order for a survey to be successful, we have to come up with and develop a survey plan so that we know what are our goals and objectives for conducting the survey, what is the actual survey instrument and the items and categories that we're going to measure, and who are we going to be surveying. So Scantron's outsourcing group has pre-survey consulting services where we provide services to help create a survey plan. We provide an in-depth needs analysis, identifying the main objectives and determining what are the final data requirements. We also do the survey development where we refine an existing survey or develop a new survey. And we develop the question and response content to help develop that specifically with the methodology in mind, as well as the sample that we're going to be going after. And the surveys we developed are, we also provide the reliability and validity testing so that you know on the back end you're getting good data and information on the back end that's going to be actionable so that you can help change the employee engagement behavior. We also do the sampling plan if we need to conduct and look at specific subgroups. We will help work with you on identifying who the target audience is and any subgroup requirements. We also will assist you with determining the statistical significance for the result findings. Now, part of our in-house solutions that we have include the complete software packages for you to create your surveys, deploy them, and we provide the scanner solutions if you're doing paper, or you can also do a variety of methodologies such as web, email, or kiosk. Collect that information, and then our in-house tools and software also have the ability to do the reporting and analysis on the back end. There's also a host of survey tools and libraries that are built in the software, so you can take a look at specific categories if you wanted to conduct things like a motivation survey, job evaluation, personal expectations inventory, a leadership skills assessment, and even risk-taking readiness and a variety of other topics. That's just to name a few of the actual surveys that are built within the software package. So whether you want to conduct and create your own paper, online, email, or kiosk survey, our Scantron Survey Suite provides you a host of these complete solutions so you can manage the project internally. We also have developed our Alliance Link Employee Engagement Survey, and this is provided through our outsourcing survey group, where this particular employee engagement survey is a comprehensive tool measuring critical attributes of loyalty, including some of these topics you see here, such as pay and performance, customer focus, leadership, and employee focus. We also focus on working relationships and so forth. And the data and written reports that we provide you give you, your company, insight into your current performance, along with identifying key drivers so that you can focus on specific areas that will have the greatest impact on improving employee loyalty and your overall business performance. This survey instrument is also statistically valid and reliable, and our current survey instrument has about 11 categories total with 55 rating questions, plus there are some demographics and 2 written comments and also a section of questions that can be customized for your organization. When we administer the surveys for you, these are completely professionally designed surveys with either the Scantron look and feel so that your employees can feel confident that an outside company is conducting the survey. We can also include your branding if it's a different type of survey where that type of third-party anonymity is not as critical. We can typically administer the survey on an annual basis to employees, or we can do pulse checks of your employee engagement. We can distribute the surveys through email, including an invitation with a personalized link so that we can make sure that no one is going in and stuffing the ballot box. And the survey that we have, the Alliance Link Employee Engagement Survey, takes only about 5 to 8 minutes to complete. We can also do a variety of other methodologies as well as multiple languages if needed. The report packages for surveys that we conduct for you, we provide you with online results. Everything from the report packages include a guide to understanding your reports. You can look at overall and filtered results. You can also look at internal baseline or benchmark, and also taking a look at scores specifically for employee satisfaction, loyalty, and advocacy. We also provide category roll-ups. You can drill down to specific questions, highlight any type of alert for possible problems and opportunities for improvement, and then where to focus your resources when you look at the results. We provide key drivers. So this is exactly where you need to focus in order to drive results. This is an example of a key driver report that is included in a written report where we highlight what questions are specifically driving satisfaction outcomes, loyalty outcomes, and advocacy outcomes. And we also provide a written report that gives you more in-depth analysis other than just your data reports. We will take a look at, review the results, do some more in-depth analysis, provide you with recommendations, and then also this information can then lead to action planning. We can also do on-site debriefs and provide you with tools so you can take those results, disseminate those throughout the different work teams, and create some action plans as well. Once a survey is conducted, whether you are conducting it in-house using our software systems and tools, or you're outsourcing it completely to Scantron Survey Services, we also can provide you with post-survey consulting services to help you with creating action planning guides, which are systematic debriefs of the results, so you can disseminate that to all employees within the organization. We can help you with engaging work teams so that you can create these action plans. This helps to provide employee-level feedback to management and also creates this accountability and personal investment down to the employee level. We also conduct 360-degree feedback surveys, which will provide feedback from bosses, peers, and direct reports for a specific leader. And it also helps promote improvement within departments and groups. We also can provide some executive-level coaching and leadership development to improve communication, management, leadership, and this can also be provided to groups or individuals. So to sum up Scantron's value proposition, we provide both the flexible in-house as well as outsourcing solutions to help you to drive employee loyalty and ultimately your bottom line success. We help you to and provide you with the tools and resources to combine administration methodologies so that you can reduce costs, increase response rates, whether you're conducting the survey via paper, telephone, online, focus groups, or a hybrid of these methodologies. We also provide you with detailed data reporting. Our consultants can assist you with key driver analysis and trend analysis of the results, and you can work with our expert team of loyalty and engagement consultants to help to improve the entire customer experience, which starts with the engaging of the employees. And then we also provide additional consulting services available to help you to develop action plans that lead to positive business results. Again, if you have any questions, you can type those questions in the chat window at the bottom of your screen. So I'm going to open it up right now for questions, and we'll provide any answers that may come up as well. So one of the questions here that is someone typed in is that we have a more informal approach to measuring employee satisfaction now. What would be the benefits for our company to move to a more comprehensive survey? Margaret, do you want to take a look at that question and answer that?
Certainly. Well, there are two things that immediately come to mind. The first is with an informal method of gathering data from your employees, that's dangerous because, first of all, you're likely not getting reliable and valid information. It's not systematically collected. So in order to do analysis on it, not only would it be very challenging, but I don't know how much clout, if you will, that I would put into the findings from that analysis. Any any research, any data collection should always be done in a formalized manner, meaning it's defined, it has specific goals, the method is operationalized so that everything's understood. I mean, doing research, employee research, consumer research, and customer research it's a science, and that is very important. And the second thing that you mentioned is satisfaction, and that they've been doing it with satisfaction. So looking at those two things, my recommendation would be first is to look at what you've been doing and find out, what are the most important points? What are you truly looking to learn? And develop a very sound survey instrument. You want something that you're going to use over and over and over again. You want something to be valid. You want something to be reliable. And you want to be able to trend so you know what's going on from quarter to quarter, from year to year among your employees. And you also want to include some of the issues that I mentioned with regard to engagement. And again, not just satisfied. Are you satisfied with this? Are you satisfied with that? No. How do you feel about? What do you think about? And ask people, are they willing to advocate the organization? Would they recommend it to a friend or a family member as a great place to work? Because that's a level of investment that you can't find with just satisfaction. So develop a strong survey tool, increase it again. You don't want, 20 pages of questions, but certainly increase it enough to cover all of those areas that are important to an engaged employee, as I mentioned earlier in the webinar, and you have to be systematic in administering it. And again, at the very least, once a year.
Great. Thank you, Margaret. There's another question here. 55 questions that you mentioned in the Alliance Link Employee Engagement sounds like too many questions. Our survey has 15. Why is your survey so long? Margaret, do you want to address that?
Yeah, as I sort of just said, there are a lot of attributes that roll up into engagement. And in all honesty, since I've seen them, and they're in the research over and over and over again, you don't want to not include them. So, we've spent, and I was involved in developing this particular assessment, we spent, a year in its development and a year piloting it and doing reliability and validity testing on it. And those are the questions that, I feel very strongly that need to be included in the survey to give a good picture of what's going on with the employee and truly understanding the workforce. And although 55 sounds like a lot, it's not. They're rating questions. You read the statement, you endorse your level of agreement with it. And, I've had people complete the survey in as few as 4 minutes and up to 10 minutes. But it's very user-friendly. It's easy to take. And I wouldn't personally be willing to give up any one of the questions. They fit together. They address specific areas. And again, this was put together very specifically. This was put together very scientifically. And, yeah, I think we need all those questions to get a good understanding of what's going on, in addition to be able to conduct any sort of reliable key driver analysis, predictive analysis.
It does really give some very detailed and actionable information on the back end and
yes.
allows you to conduct that key driver analysis so you know where to focus. So perfect. If there are no further questions, I will leave the webinar open for a few minutes. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat window, but I don't see any other questions at this time. I do thank everyone for attending the webinar today. You can also, for more information, dial 800-SCANTRON, which is 722-6876. You can email Dr. Henry directly at Margaret_Henry@Scantron.com or myself at Pamela_Briggs@Scantron.com, and we would be happy to address any other questions or direct you to the correct person that you need to speak with in regards to developing and implementing an employee engagement survey. So again, thank you everyone for your time and have a great day.
Yes, have a wonderful day, and thank you again. Bye-bye.
behavior